Hello and welcome to TVP World News. I'm your host, Diana Skaya. Thousands of Serbians, mostly students, are taking part in a 24-hour protest blocking one of the main highway intersections in Belgrade. Now, the blockade is supposed to end at 10 a.m. local time. Now, the protests were sparked after 15 people were killed in a deadly roof collapse at a railway station in Novi Sad. The protesters are accusing the Serbian government of corruption, which they say has led to the country's dysfunction. Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić eventually admitted that the protesters' demands will be met and those arrested will be released. A major government reshuffle, which might result in the replacement of half of the minister roster, was also announced. Now, a debate on confidence in the current government, which was requested by the opposition, will be held at the Wednesday session of the Serbian parliament. Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić spoke out on protesting students. He also announced a reshuffle of his cabinet, which is supposed to replace some 50% of the current minister roster.
The question is whether all this will be enough for someone to say, all the demands have been met. The students were very fair. They stuck to these 4 demands and didn't add on like some others. I hope that it will be enough, but I am not sure about that. But I am sure that this must initiate a dialogue in society. The rectors, deans and everyone else must begin with talks. It's very important that we open a dialogue. It will mean that our society can now begin to heal. I require the most urgent and sweeping reshuffle of the Serbian government, because in these difficult political times, it has become clear who is ready to fight and who is not, who is ready to work and who is not, who has gone to ground and who has not. As a result, I expect more than 50% of current ministers to be replaced in a very urgent reshuffle.
European affairs ministers are gathering today in Brussels for the General Affairs Council. Now, this is the first meeting of the body since Poland took over the presidency of the EU Council. And our EU correspondent Angela Skujins is in Brussels. We'll go to her live right now. Good morning, Angela. So what is expected to come out of today's meetings? What are some of the updates that you can tell us?
So from what we've seen of the agenda, security and defence will be a major through line of some of the topics discussed here today at the European Council. Now, this will manifest through those EU affairs ministers hammering out the details for an informal summit scheduled to take place at the beginning of next week. UK's Prime Minister Keir Starmer will be in attendance, as well as NATO's Secretary-General Mark Rutte. They'll be tasked with looking at shoring up the EU's defence industry, looking at investment as well as other production capabilities, as well as how to respond to some of those hybrid threats that Russia is exerting across the EU. Enlargement will also be on today's agenda. We've had the EU Affairs Minister from Poland, Adam Szwepka. He just told reporters here at the European Council building that he was looking forward to discussing Moldova's accession bid as well as Serbia. Now, it comes off the back of another day of protests gripping the capital of Belgrade, anger over how that country's leader, Aleksandar Vučić, has handled a deadly train accident that claimed the lives of over a dozen people. But there's a press conference scheduled for later today at around 1 p.m, so we'll be following that for you. That is all from the Belgian capital. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you so much, Angela. And like you said, we will be coming back to you throughout the day for more updates. Now, staying on Serbia, Adam Szwepka, the Minister for European Union Affairs, commented on the ongoing protests in Serbia. Here's what he said.
There is the part of democracy that people are protesting, that they are expressing their opinions. It is a kind of support of supporting of the European Union progress in Serbia. So we are just watching that, but we are determined to speed up the process of enlargement in terms of Serbia as well.
Moving on now to Ukraine, where a Russian drone attack has sparked a large fire in Ukraine's second largest city of Kharkiv. A gas pipe was damaged in the strike, which targeted an industrial area.
The Ukrainian authorities say the blaze spread to an area of about 1,500 square meters. 12 units of the Ukrainian State Emergency Service were reportedly involved in extinguishing the flames. Local authorities say the attacked facility was a woodworking shop and no one was inside during the strike.
The presidents of France and Ukraine have met in Poland to discuss increasing support for Ukraine. Now, President Zelenskyy thanked his French counterpart for support and asked for assistance in the negotiation process for EU accession. Now, both Emmanuel Macron and Volodymyr Zelenskyy attended the commemoration of the liberation of Nazi German Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration camp. Now, after the ceremonies, they sat down for a bilateral meeting. The Ukrainian presidential office released a statement saying that since the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion, France has provided 6 billion euros in defense aid to Kyiv, adding that Ukraine counts on France to boost Kyiv's position in achieving a just and lasting peace. The leaders of Germany and Denmark want the European Union to jointly purchase and manufacture ammunition. Now, these comments come after a series of recent attacks on underwater infrastructure in the Baltic Sea.
We need to strengthen the European pillar of NATO and further increase defense spending. In Brussels, we will also talk about a more efficient European defense industry. We need rules that facilitate the joint development and procurement of armaments in the European Union.
We are facing a more uncertain reality, a reality that calls for an even more united Europe and for more cooperation. Our ties are rooted in our history, our values, and in our interest in Europe and also across the Atlantic.
Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, is going to meet his Polish counterpart, Donald Tusk, in Warsaw on Tuesday. Now, the leaders will discuss support for Ukraine and strengthening NATO's eastern flank.
The talks are also to focus on the cooperation between Ottawa and Brussels. Poland currently holds the rotating presidency in the Council of the European Union, and the EU is Canada's second largest economic partner. During his visit to Poland, Prime Minister Trudeau has attended the commemorations of the liberation of the German concentration and death camp in Auschwitz.
Commemorations were held on Monday to mark the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. Now, around 50 Holocaust survivors were in attendance, and some of them shared their testimonies of the horrors they experienced at the Nazi concentration and extermination camp. And our Aaron Damon was at the ceremony and has this next report.
A somber day here at Auschwitz, 80 years since this concentration camp was liberated. You can see the very recognisable barbed wire fence behind me that has become synonymous, a symbol of this brutal genocide during World War II. And just a couple of metres away from where we're standing, a tent was set up around the main gate, the main entrance of Auschwitz-Birkenau II. And it was in front of that gate that survivors today told their story. Here is what they had to say.
Those who lived to see freedom, there were hardly any of them, and now there are only a handful of survivors. We need to think of all those victims who can never share their experience.
So true. January 27th. My whole life, since I was a little girl, I thought of it as my birthday. This is my birthday. Some of my friends don't even know that I have a regular birthday, because this is what counts.
Leaders from all around the world came here for these commemorations, including King Charles and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. In fact, when President Zelenskyy got up with the other dignitaries to light a candle in tribute to the victims of Auschwitz, he got a standing ovation. And it is worth remembering here that 1.1 million people were killed at Auschwitz during World War II. That number is staggering. But when you hear the survivors speaking about their memories, about their stories, it becomes all too real. And now delegations are leaving behind me, driving off back into the night, and they'll have those stories, those memories ringing in their ear. From Auschwitz for TVP World, I'm Aaron Darman.
Danish authorities announced on Monday the country would spend over $2 billion on boosting its military presence in the Arctic. Now, the decision comes amid continuing outcry over U.S. President Donald Trump's interest in controlling Greenland as semi-autonomous Danish territory.
In a written statement, the Danish Ministry of Defense said that Danish political parties agreed to, quote, improve capabilities for surveillance and maintaining sovereignty in the region. As part of the multi-billion-dollar investment, Denmark will fund new Arctic naval vessels, long-range drones, and ramp up recruitment for basic Arctic military training. Moreover, lawmakers from all Danish political parties agreed to discuss further increases to the Arctic military budget later this year.
Donald Trump has announced he will sign executive orders banning transgender persons from the American military. And moreover, he said he will stop service members from, quote, being indoctrinated with radical left ideologies such as the critical race theory.
And next, to ensure that we have the most lethal fighting force in the world, we will get transgender ideology the hell out of our military. It's going to be gone. In addition, we will stop our service members from being indoctrinated with radical left ideologies such as critical race theory. We're going to stop it. It's already been stopped. It's already been halted, totally halted. And finally, we will offer full reinstatement to any service member who was expelled from the armed forces due to the COVID vaccine mandate. And we will restore them to their former rank with full pay.
And staying on the United States, the U.S. will step up its efforts to build an advanced anti-ballistic missile system. Now, the orders to create the Iron Dome for America were officially issued by Donald Trump on Monday.
Began to develop an advanced anti-nuclear missile system during the presidency of Ronald Reagan. However, no comprehensive installation was eventually built at the time. Since then, the threat of next-generation intercontinental missiles has only grown. The new Iron Dome for America is expected to protect the U.S. from attacks by ballistic, hypersonic and cruise missiles and will include elements of space architecture.
At a Republican event in Miami, Donald Trump said that the introduction of China's new artificial intelligence solutions should be a wake-up call for the American tech industry. At the same time, Trump views the development as a positive, apparently thinking that Chinese companies will gladly share intellectual property like patents with their American counterparts.
China and some of the companies in China, one in particular, coming up with a faster method of AI and much less expensive method. And that's good because you don't have to spend this much money. I view that as a positive, as an asset. So I really think if it's fact and if it's true, and nobody really knows if it is, but I view that as a positive because you'll be doing that too. So you won't be spending as much and you'll get the same result, hopefully. The release of DeepSeek AI from a Chinese company should be a wake-up call for our industries that we need to be laser focused on competing to win because we have the greatest scientists in the world.
Monday, French authorities declared a red weather alert for western parts of the country. Storm Herminia unleashed large downpours in the administrative center of Rennes, with the area experiencing the worst flooding in 40 years.
8 other French departments were on orange alert for flooding, flash floods, and in the case of French Alps, avalanches. According to the mayor of Rennes, the worst floods are still to come, and water levels are expected to start receding only on Wednesday. The city evacuated 400 residents living in the streets near the Saint-Martin Canal and turned gyms into temporary shelters.
And that's it for this edition of TVP World News. I'm Diana Skaya. Thanks for watching.